Hello guys, this is Don's Movies, and you're watching World of Warcraft Lore Q&A number 42. So today I'll be answering some of the questions from the previous episode, and if you'd like to get your questions answered, make sure to put them on the newest Q&A lore video. If I didn't answer it before, you can just copy paste it on the new comment. Sometimes it can be marked as spam, but I check the spam usually, so I'll probably see it. So if I don't pick it up, you should probably just leave it there and I'll pick it up eventually, hopefully. And another way to do it is also by YouTube personal messages and Facebook and Twitter, as you have links in the description for that below. And if you send me questions by Facebook and Twitter, I can probably answer them pretty quickly, although I can probably include them in the video as well. Alright, so without further ado, let's just get into the questions. So the first question is by Xerak Wow, and he asks, whatever happened to the Knights of the Ebon Blade? Did they end up taking Ice Crown as their own to keep control of the undead? Or do you think something will happen to have them join the Forsaken? So honestly, the Knights of the Ebon Blade, they're kind of one of those people that haven't really been touched since the expansion ended, like Wrath of the Lich King. And they're supposed to be in that area where you start out as a Death Knight, so that's like Eastern Lordaeron. And of course, now it's supposedly rebuilt, but Blizzard hasn't made any progress on it at all, and it looks like just as it was like 5-6 years ago. So it's not rebuilt at all, even though lore-wise it's supposed to be. Now, I don't think they really had any sort of like a major role since Wrath of the Lich King, and their kind of a main purpose is to kill the Lich King, but the Lich King is dead anyways, so it doesn't really make sense anymore. But they still exist as a faction. A lot of them are in like the Alliance or the Horde or whatever, but they still do continue to exist as like a different faction. But they haven't really been mentioned in a really long time, and no one really knows what they're up to. I'm guessing they're fixing and rooting out the rest of the Scourge from the eastern part of Lordaeron, rebuilding all that stuff. But I don't think they will really have like an amazing future, because the Death Knights are kind of over, and they do still kind of exist, but they don't really reproduce from what I know. Alright, next question is by Matthew, and he asks, what is the purpose of the Night Elf Moonwell? I think they're made using some water from the Well of Eternity, but one would assume that would be used to allow an elf to control their magic addiction, similar to what Quel'Dorei had to do. In the case of a Highborn, it makes sense that a Moonwell would be needed, but for druids who are not addicted to arcane magic or the effects of it, it doesn't really quite add up to me. So it's kind of a thing they use in order to get the moon energy, but it's usually just water mixed with the water from the Well of Eternity. Honestly, I think it's sort of like a loophole in the lore at this point. I mean, they do actually exist, but it's a bit weird. I mean, it was mostly used as a game mechanic in Warcraft 3, because I believe they kind of disadvantaged the Night Elves in a way, because that's sort of a way to make different races in a game. It's not like you just make like humans and orcs. They're supposed to kind of have like a different structure, like a game mechanic structure, so they're not just like the same thing, just with different models. So they have like different buildings, different builds and all of that. Just like in StarCraft you have the Zergs and the Protoss and the Terran and all of that. Now I feel like they kind of disadvantaged Night Elves, so they wanted to make it easier for them to defend themselves, since they could like heal their units on their base, so they could use like the supply buildings in order to heal themselves. Now I'm not really entirely certain how it works in the lore at this point. I mean, I know how it worked before, that they can help high elf magic addiction, and the corrupted moonwells also turn the Night Elves into satyrs, but I don't really know how it is at this point in the lore, because it's not the same as it was long before, when you had like the Well of Eternity and all that stuff. Alright, the next question is by Luluzi, and she asks, what is the reason from Worlds of Draenor, Ashran lore-wise? Why the Horde and the Alliance fight again? Also, what are the major factions lore characters doing while they're out of the main plot, like Tyrion and the Argent Crusade, the Goblin factions, the leftover of the Twilight Cult, the Earthen Ring, Druidic, I forgot the name, Circle? Can you explain please? Now the second part of the question is pretty much the same answer as the first one about the Ebon Blade, and it's the fact that those factions are kinda related to the current relevant expansion, and they really aren't even touched, or we don't really know what's going on with them unless they like mention them in some sort of a story, or at least they say what they're doing in the future. Like the Argent Crusade, for example, is rebuilding the destroyed Lordaeron and getting rid of the remnants of the undead and kinda healing the land, while others are just doing the regular thing without any major events. As a lot of those organizations do exist, And they do actually have a role, but it's not like the same. It's not like they're formed if there's like a giant threat. I mean, they still kind of exist. It's just like with a lot of organizations that are kind of made for emergency causes or whatever it is, like formed in a time of a need. I mean, they still gotta do their like regular stuff, like daily routines or whatever it is, until there's like a major threat that then they're like really useful. But for example, like the goblin factions, I'm guessing they're still selling their stuff or doing whatever it is. No one really knows at this point, and unless they're mentioned in like a book or something, really no one really knows what's going on. Also, on the main part of the question, what is the reason for Ashran lore-wise? Now, I can actually tell you from my experience there, and it's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in like a game so far. I mean, it's pretty much game design in order to put the faction hubs together and force world PvP that is explained by lore in order to actually justify it, but it's actually quite terrible. I mean, we go to this world like an alternate universe. There's like a giant world that's really tied into the World of Warcraft lore, and there are all these major threats, and of course the world is about to be destroyed. And then we actually like decide, let's form a base on like this tiny little island all the way from the continent, and then let's like battle each other, because it's not like our forces are limited, and if we destroy each other we won't be able to actually battle the real threat. So I can't really explain it lore wise, as in my opinion it's really a bad idea, and I don't know why they did it. I think it's mostly because they ran out of time and they didn't want to like balance everything out. It's the same way they removed the little island all the way at the bottom, and also the Netherstorm thing that was supposed to be at the top. You can definitely see the current beta map and the actual like BlizzCon map. I don't know how many people actually noticed that, but a lot of stuff is missing from the map and it's kind of changed, like those two islands for example. So honestly, I wouldn't really explain Ashran lore wise, because it's not a good thing and it's not good writing or anything like that. So I don't think it's good, at least it's just my opinion. So I don't know what you guys think. Do give me some feedback on what you think about Ashran, but I kind of made a video on that, I believe, on the faction hubs a few months ago, so if you want you can check that out. Alright, next question is by Austin, and he asks, my question is about Grommash. We know that he has killed Manarot twice, although have been in different timelines, but I was just curious on how strong Grommash was compared to Manarot. I mean, Grom has pretty much one hit him twice. I just figured a pit lord and high-ranked officer in the Legion would be a lot stronger. No disrespect to Grommash though, he's a beast. Well, I would say Grommash is strong, but he doesn't really have like these superpowers you might think he does. I mean, he's definitely stronger than your average orc, but really isn't anything like super crazy, even though they do like to exaggerate important lore figures, and that's kind of the thing with every fantasy like world. Not just games, but just like movies, books and all that stuff. Like the kings and princes, for example. I mean, they always fight a lot better and a lot stronger, while in reality there isn't anything like really special about it. For example, you have those kings that like rush into battles, and of course every arrow avoids them or whatnot, even though they would probably be killed just like any other soldier, no matter like how much training they have, even though it could be like quality training. So I'm guessing like someone who isn't that amazing, like important figure that has a lot of training, would probably last a lot longer. Although with the orcs it's a bit different, since they value strength a lot, and usually the leader of the clan is the strongest one, so it could make sense. But he really can't be like stronger than any other orc. I mean, if he was probably attacked by like 10 orcs, he probably wouldn't be able to do anything against them, even though lore wise they do like to like exaggerate. But just thinking like it logically. But I wouldn't really say he's stronger than Manarot. I mean, power-wise, he kind of just got lucky 2 times. I mean, I'm saying this even though he's my favorite characters, but when you kind of look at it from like a logical perspective, it does kind of make sense. I mean, first time he kind of rushed him because Manarot completely underestimated him, and Gorkhal, I guess, is a really strong axe because it managed to pierce through. While the other time, he was kind of distracted by all those fireballs and all of the stuff happening and the other orcs attacking. And then there was like the explosion, and Grommash actually managed to jump and like land a hit directly into his head, which killed him instantly. But I don't think if there was like a 1v1 arena, I'm pretty certain Manarot would be able to actually win, because as I said, I mean, Grommash winning is more of like a lore thing, like a story progression in order to like free the orcs and all of that. But there is really like no way that an orc that is only a few feet taller than like your average human could be able to take down this like gigantic demon pit lord. Who knows how tall he is, probably like 10, 15 times taller than an actual orc, which is like 20 times taller than a human, that has like a gigantic blade that could like slice a building in half or whatever it is. So it wouldn't really make sense, even though you could probably argue that he's a lot slower and all of that, but I mean, he's still pretty powerful, and a lot of the Burning Legion is. I mean, he's not like Sargeras powerful, but I would say he's stronger than your average orc. Alright, next question is by Angry Dwarf Studios, and he asks, where are all of the other races that can become Forsaken? Trolls, dwarves, elves, etc. Why don't we have them in-game? Now, it's a bit of a weird thing, especially now, since the Forsaken don't really work in that way. Now, as I said in my Forsaken RP guide video, they turned into the undead because of the plague, and from what I know, the plague is kinda specifically designed for humans, so it mostly affects humans. Although, I don't think we really know how it affects all of the other races. I'm guessing it has some effects on others, on some it has probably a heavier effect than the rest, but generally, it's kinda meant for the humans directly. So on other races, it would probably be like just like a side effect. There are also the Blood Elves that died and were turned into, well, not really Forsaken, but kinda joined them. There are the Dark Rangers, a few other guys, so they aren't really just like undead humans, but they are a bit different. Now, I'm not really sure how it works now, though, as they have like this new plague, but I believe it still mostly affects humans, and maybe it works a bit different than others. It's one of those things that really isn't explained, like I can't really give my own answer on this one. It's not like they wrote directly what the plague does, and who can be affected and who can be raised, because, for example, the Lich King could raise all races as Dead Knights, even though they're not the same as the Forsaken. Now, for example, the Forsaken themselves were raised by the plague, but I know, for example, that it doesn't work on the Worgen, hence some of the humans, I believe in Cataclysm, turned into Worgen to avoid being the undead. So, I guess it doesn't work specifically against Worgen. Also, another thing is, the undead kinda have a lot of these hidden or not really explained things, such as the abominations, or all sorts of their own creations, like these monsters and all of that, that are made from all these unknown parts, and I don't think you can really tell what the abomination is. It's obviously not just a human that was raised, because it's like huge. It has like all these different parts, arms and all of that. Like, I don't think anyone really knows what all those parts are and who they belong to, so I'm not really certain. As I said, it's one of those things that's not really explained, so I can't really give you a direct answer on that one, but mostly the original Forsaken were just humans, because they kinda just destroyed the Lordaeron part. They didn't really go to any other sides or really affect any other guys. Alright, and the last question is by Swamper, and he asks, I'm curious if the older in-game cinematics will be redone, such as the Red Kate. For instance, the new character models will be out, but everyone in the new models looks cool, but once you see the old cinematic and with the old models, it doesn't look that great. So I will ask, will the new models be in older cinematics or not? So I actually heard a lot of people complain about this, surprisingly, but I honestly wouldn't mind it if it is as it is, as it has some sort of history to it and memories, plus all of those cinematics are kinda pre-rendered, so it's not like once they change the models, the cinematics change, because they did it. It's like a machinima thing, so they use the current models. They can't really, it's not like an in-game thing, so they can just change it, because it's like a video thing. It's actually like rendered in like a video program, for example like After Effects and Premiere. Then it's like put into the game, but it's not like in-game event that you can see afterwards, even though it might look like after that, because you can see like all the dead bodies. But it's kind of just like a video, then there's like a build scene, and it's not really as easy as you might think, because they would have to rebuild all of those cinematics, and I don't think they would do that. I think it would just kind of be wasted effort that they could put into newer expansion or like a newer in-game cinematic and all of that. And that is kind of the same reason why they don't really fix the stuff from older expansions in like patches. For example, like replace all the old models, like the environmental stuff, but only do like when it's relevant. For example, when there was Cataclysm, so they had to fix all those zones, or if there's like a dungeon redo or something like that. But apart from that, they don't really touch on the old content, although it would be really awesome when you think about it if they had like this small team that would only work on older content, maybe just a few people that would only fix like a few models from the past and kind of enhance the game. Although I don't think Blizzard really wants to do that, because it won't really benefit them, because usually when they make a new patch, they make like this trailer and all of that and like announce it everywhere, but it's not like they change like one rock in the old like expansions, and then they like announce it everywhere. So it won't really work, and especially in the cinematics, like I'm almost entirely certain that they will never change those in-game cinematics, because it doesn't really make sense, like in order to put like all the effort into the previous expansions, even though no one is really gonna care because they already got through it. I mean, a lot of people would probably rewatch it again, but they wouldn't really care about it since it's not like relevant content, and there is really no Lich King anymore. I mean, there is Bolvar, but there's no like artist, there is no like giant world chat and all of that stuff, so I don't see why they would want to bring back those characters even though the focus isn't on them. Alright, so that is all I have for this Q&A. I will be bringing up a new video probably tomorrow or the day after. I have some updates I want to announce on the channel, probably a new series, also a new schedule and all of that stuff, so I don't really want to put it into this video because it's long as it is. Although do leave your questions for the next Q&A. As I said in the beginning, you can do it either by YouTube comment section. If I didn't answer it before, you can just copy paste it. I will try to get to it eventually. Also, you can send your questions by YouTube personal messages, Facebook and Twitter. And also I stream occasionally. I haven't streamed in like a week or so, but I will stream in like a day or two. So if you have some questions, you can check out my stream and I will answer them live. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, as it really helps out these videos and the channel as well. And thanks so much for taking your time to watch this video, and see you next time.